Good morning. Welcome to Dornbusch download number 129. Good morning to you, Rod. How are you there this morning?
I'm fantastic, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, another busy week as we've seen. But mate, look, thanks for joining us again today. You're going to talk, I guess, something a little bit different to what we normally talk about on the download. Usually it's sort of more about markets and shares and IPOs, but I guess as part of the broad financial planning service that we provide, you've got a few points that people should be looking out for, more along the lines of the estate planning sort of route.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. A lot of times estate planning's not spoken about and forgotten about and put to one side, but like estate planning essentially is what happens when there's a death in the family, someone passes on. What happens to their assets. So it's good to plan ahead for that sort of thing. Obviously a will in place is number one. So a will should be, you should seek advice from a solicitor to get it done properly. And a will looks after your personal assets, but there's other assets as well that's not looked after by your will, which people aren't aware of. Things like superannuation, like if you nominate your spouse or your children to receive the benefits of your super in the case of your death, that's dealt with by the super fund, not your actual will as such. So there's things like that, Michael. There's also things you should address, like enduring powers of attorney. That's before death. If someone is in their hospital bed on their last legs, it allows someone else to make decisions on your behalf. So that's a very important thing, like financial decisions and health decisions as well. Just things like that people don't talk about. Like families should talk about these things. It's a little bit awkward at times, but definitely should talk about it, Michael. Just to get it out there, get it organised. Everyone knows what's happening, so it makes it much easier.
Yeah, look, you're exactly right, Rod. I think as a society, and perhaps it's even a Western cultural thing in a lot of respects as well, we're really not great about talking about death and moving on, so to speak. We're all going to do it. It's going to happen to all of us. Sorry for the bad news there, but you're right. I mean, and we see it all too often, don't you? Where beneficiaries of a person's estate come in, they don't have a clue.
Totally cold. Don't know anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No idea where to start, what assets are there. It's and it often can drag these things out for, months, if not years, just because there was no, round the table discussion at the appropriate time. But
because it is the emotional thing like that, but it can be financial impacts as well, like taxation impacts on how things are structured prior to death. So it's also the financial side of it as well as the emotional side of it.
Yeah, very true, Rod. And again, you bring up a good point in that I think there's a lot of confusion about where the will actually comes in and where other structures actually retain, the control of those assets within them. Certainly personally held assets will generally go to a will, but things like, jointly held investments, where the ownership effectively, in most cases just transfers to the surviving spouse. But again, you're right, with superannuation in particular, it's from my perspective, generally the most misunderstood part of super is what actually happens, when the member does pass away. Who can get what, who can be nominated as beneficiaries, what roles do trustees play, all of that sort of thing. So, so it is complicated. It's going to happen to all of us, but again, we're not great at talking about these sorts of things. So certainly get your solicitor involved, accountant, people like us. If everyone's usually on the same page, it usually ends up being the best result.
That's for sure. Just touching on the superannuation side of things, a lot of people haven't got a beneficiary nominated on their superannuation fund, so it's important to have a beneficiary nominated, whether it be your spouse or your children, or you can nominate your estate for the funds to go to your estate and get dealt with by your will if you like. But there's a thing called a binding beneficiary as well. So a binding beneficiary is just makes it more secure, more concrete. you sign a nomination, it's witnessed, and the money will, like I said, it's more concrete to definitely go to where you want it to go. So
Yeah.
just one thing there, Michael.
Yeah, it sort of legally binds the trustee, doesn't it? As long as the nomination's valid, and yeah, there's a bit of complexity in there, isn't there? So you've got to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But you're right, it's a very powerful sort of tool, and again, can speed up the transfer of assets. You know, from the deceased to the people that you want it to go to.
Yeah,
So yeah, but look, certainly if you'd like to call in, have a chat. This is more the solicitor's bag, of course. You know, they're the ones that actually draft up the documents. But have a chat to them, particularly if it's been a while since you've updated your will. If there's been a marriage, a divorce, children, grandchildren, all those big events in your life, really you should be reviewing, your will as well. I guess, Rod, is there a time you should be sort of giving your will a facelift generally, or?
Oh, like you said, one of those big moments in your life, married, divorce, and children and the like are prime times, but essentially you should look at it every few years. Those binding nominations we were talking about before, usually they only last for 3-year periods. So if you want to call it at least 3-year periods, just to have a look at it and review it is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess quickly to markets, Rod, there's been a little bit of a bouncy sort of ride. I think there's not a great deal that we're talking about just at the moment, but a bit of a sell-off in America last night. Seeming like the Trump, well, dare I say, bubbles getting a little bit of a leak in it. There's a bit of concern about his 3, big ticket items. The reduction in taxes, reduced regulation, and infrastructure spend. Throw in healthcare as well. They're all getting a little bit of headwind in Congress over there, and perhaps some of these, again, big ticket items aren't going to get through perhaps as easily as once thought. So. Bit of a drop in America last night. We're seeing that in our market today, but again, both markets are probably due for a bit of a breather. One thing to keep an eye out, again, we mentioned it last week, Bank of Queensland reports their results next week, 30th of April, and that'll start the cycle off to see NAB, ANZ and Westpac reporting shortly as well. So, but we'll give you an update on that next week.
Just one last thing, Mike, there's something very important today. Is it a day of note?
It is, Rod, yeah. Dornbusch Partners 13 years today, so happy birthday to Dornbusch Partners, Andrew and John.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, Andrew and John Dornbusch, of course, starting the business off 13 years ago. So yeah, mate, no, it's amazing how quickly 13 years goes by.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's about us done, mate, I think.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Rod, and thanks for watching.